Back in 2022, I, a 27-year-old female, found myself in rural Australia after moving from Melbourne to be with my fiancé, now my ex-fiancé, 29-year-old male, stationed at the local army base. We sought refuge from Melbourne's chaotic COVID lockdowns, choosing a house in a rather dubious part of the town. The house, aged and surrounded by large glass windows, revealed almost every corner from the outside. The town, isolated and hours away from any major city, held an eerie charm. As night fell, my solitude increased, with my boyfriend away on a week-long field assignment. The summer heat was relentless, forcing me to leave windows and even the back door open during restless nights. On the fifth day alone, after a long walk into town, I returned, seeking respite from the heat. The living room became my haven as I immersed myself in PlayStation and TV. As night fell, strange noises echoed from the path beside the kitchen, seemingly from a neighbor's workshop. Oblivious to the impending danger, I prepared for bed around 10 p.m., locking the back door after finishing a round of Call of Duty. With lights off, I heard louder noises, attributing them to the neighbor or perhaps an animal. Dismissing the unease, I set my phone aside, ready to sleep. Suddenly, a series of bangs on the back door shattered the stillness, shaking the house. Glass shattered, and the relentless banging continued. In a panic, I tried to scare them off, yelling and barricading myself in the bedroom. Frantically, I called 000, Australia's emergency line, crouching in fear as the assailants turned their attention to the bedroom door. Sirens wailed in the distance, the banging ceased, and police lights pierced the darkness. Amid confusion, I found solace in realizing it was the police. With the arrival of my boyfriend and the police, the horrifying scene was revealed. The back gate was broken, the bedroom door cracked, the back door kicked off its hinges, and the laundry window smashed. The assailants' two shadows in the night remained at large. The trauma strained my relationship, leading to our eventual move. PTSD lingered, and I now reside in a secure city apartment, surrounded by cameras and accompanied by 2 vigilant dogs. To the intruders who shattered my peace that night, let's not meet. This unfolded around 10 years ago. At 21, I occupied my first apartment, a small bachelor pad in a sketchy area. Having grown up in a tough town, I knew to keep my head down and avoid unnecessary trouble. My apartment sat behind a bar, where patrons often gathered outside to smoke, their gaze inadvertently directed at my place. Typically, interactions were minimal, just nods and greetings. Until one unsettling evening. Returning from work, I passed the bar and noticed an exceptionally tall man smoking outside. As I walked by, he fixated on me, and although I nodded, he offered no acknowledgement, just an unwavering stare. Uncomfortable, but dismissive, I didn't dwell on it. An hour later, a knock echoed through my door, odd considering visitors needed buzzing in. With only 8 units and unfamiliar neighbors, I hesitated, not eager for conversation. The knocking persisted. Finally, I shouted, "Who is it?" No response. Again, louder. "Who's there?" A voice replied, "It's Steve." I knew no Steve and firmly responded, "I don't know anyone named Steve, you must have the wrong apartment." He insisted, "You may not know me, but I know you. Open up so we can talk." Approaching the peephole, I discovered the tall guy from the bar. Angrily, I threatened, "Get lost, or I'm calling the cops." His footsteps retreated, and I heard the building door open and close. He was gone, or so I believed. Minutes later, peeking out my window, I saw him in the parking lot, seemingly talking to himself. Panicking, I phoned my landlord, who lived nearby. He advised calling the police and promised to investigate with his brother. As I awaited police assistance, my landlord and his brother confronted the tall man in the parking lot. Spotting them, he fled, eluding their pursuit. 5 minutes later, the police arrived. I recounted the events and provided a description. The officer, visibly concerned, shared, We've had reports of a man matching that description involved in sexual assaults. Thank goodness you didn't open the door." Days later, the officer called, revealing that their investigation, including a chat with the bar owner, led to the tall man's arrest after he reappeared. To the tall, creepy figure from the bar, it was a close call, and I genuinely hope our paths never cross again. In my early 20s, I befriended a girl named Emily. She came from a challenging family background with neglectful parents. Her mother was verbally abusive, and her father seemed indifferent to everything. Loneliness led Emily to seek solace on dating sites, meeting strangers face to face within days. Our friendship was peculiar. Sometimes I found her annoying, yet I empathized with her profound loneliness. Despite occasional reluctance, I'd accept her invitations. In our small friend group, she tried to bring us together frequently, transforming into a lively version of herself. It was evident she cherished the company of friends who treated her with respect. Suddenly, Emily announced she had a boyfriend named Alex. This surprised us, knowing her history of brief encounters with men from online platforms. Soon, she arranged for our friend group to meet Alex. Meeting him was awkward. He barely spoke, avoided eye contact, and emitted an uncomfortable vibe. Over time, Emily claimed Alex disliked me, accusing me of using her for money, a baseless accusation given I often covered her expenses. Months passed with Alex persistently poisoning Emily's perception of me. He dressed indifferently, never smiled, emitted a pervasive odor of weed, and overall gave off an unsettling vibe. Emily succumbed to his influence, concealing our friendship and excluding me from gatherings. One day, Emily invited me to her place. Initially agreeing, I noticed she was diverting from my house during the drive. Questioning her, she evaded my queries with an unsettling smirk. Realizing we were headed to Alex's place, I demanded an explanation. She coldly replied, "Alex wants to talk to you." Furious and apprehensive about the creepy guy who despised me, I demanded to be let out of the car. Locked in, I seized an opportunity at a red light, grabbed her wallet, and fled. Blocking her number, severing social media ties, and warning mutual friends, I cut all connections. Emily lost not only me, but the entire friend group. Since that day, I've had no contact with her, hoping she has found solitude in her own choices. To my old friend Emily, I hope we never meet again. I grew up in a small rural town where life was quiet, and leaving doors unlocked was the norm. Our family had a large, dramatic cat named Whiskers, who, despite his flair for theatrics, was dearly loved. One summer, when I was around 9 or 10, Whiskers began acting strangely. Normally, he'd sleep peacefully in my room and occasionally wake me up for a midnight snack. However, on this particular night, he was relentless. He banged on my parents' bedroom door until he got in, meowing loudly. Our bedrooms were adjacent, and I called him to come to bed, but he refused and continued his fuss. My mom, perturbed, went down to the kitchen, and Whiskers led her there, still meowing frantically. She discovered his food bowl was full, and he just stood by the kitchen door. Whiskers usually had free access via his cat door in the garage, so there was no need for someone to let him out. Mom assumed my brother must have left the kitchen door ajar, but she wasn't going to stand there holding it open forever. After shutting the door, she went back to bed, firmly closing her bedroom door this time. I had treats in my room for Whiskers, but he continued meowing at my parents' door. I brought him into my room, trying to get him to settle, but he was persistent. I opened the door, and he darted downstairs. Shortly after, I heard what sounded like a door slamming. With siblings often up watching TV or using the bathroom, I thought nothing of it. Whiskers returned to my room but sat at the foot of my bed, staring at my door. Morning brought commotion, and I found my parents on the phone with the police. While making coffee, my mom discovered her rings missing from the jewelry dish by the sink. Panic set in as my dad noticed the ATV was gone from the backyard, the key removed from the keyring. The police were called and questions ensued. No one had a clue when the intrusion occurred. My mom asked my middle brother about the previous night. He denied being in the kitchen and mentioned he had been in the basement since dinner, watching a movie before heading to bed. Realization struck my mum. The cat, relentless in his meowing, was likely trying to warn us of an intruder. The robber, familiar with our habits, had likely planned to steal more but fled, fearing the cat might wake the entire house. Though the culprit was never caught, our dramatic feline, Whiskers, turned out to be an unexpected and heroic guardian. To the robber who entered our house, let's not meet